Okay, so here we are with just a little bit. Getting ready to work on my Triceratops piece some more. Let me show you where I am right now. This is the piece at the moment. Um, so you can see all these details. There's a lot going on with it. Um, so all of these details here, these are all done in Micron pen. The color and these darker shadows are done with Copic marker. So I'm using 100 black. I'm using warm gray number 0, number 5, number 2, and number 7. So those are my colors. I'll swatch those out over here. That's the number, that's the 0. Put something under this because I'm always worried. Okay, so that's 0. This is well, that's 100. That's black 100. This is warm gray number 0. This is warm gray number 2. This is warm gray number 5. And this is warm gray number 7. So these are pretty nice color scheme for just solid shadows because it's warm. Whenever I go to paint it to actually color it in, I am going to use a lot of warmer colors to help balance out and work with those shadows. Turn the music down a little bit. Don't want it too loud. So yeah, the Copics are kind of an addition. The main thing I'm doing right now is working through with the Micron pens, adding all the necessary detail. So, and I'm working with this camera. This is a new camera. I'm trying to see if I like the fisheye lens. It does help because I can get more view of my workspace, but it also is, I can't get the my boom mic that I have it mounted on to go much lower than where it is for some reason. So I have it kind of rigged. I have a really heavy mortar and pestle, and I have the pestle kind of clamped to the boom mic to help hold it down. It's rigged pretty funny. I'll take a picture of it and post it on my Instagram, but the things you have to do. So I'm just going to work on adding some more of these tiny little details. Right now what I'm doing is I already got in and I'm using a Micron 005. I only use the 01 when I feel like I need a thicker scale. I'm not going to need that too much yet, but right now what I'm trying to do is add in all of these little details. I only add some larger scales occasionally. Mostly I'm going for these smaller scales. There will be larger scales on the frill, and these will slowly, the ones down here will stay about this size as they move back across the body. So that's kind of where I am right now, is just adding all of these small details. And I'll keep it small details as I come up into this area here on these parts of the frill. But on the inside, I'm going to make these larger. And I'm thinking about making them like an eyeball shape on here because that's what they would do. But I need to talk to the client about that. But we're not even going to get to that today because I have so many tiny details to work on. So That's okay. And I do conjuration this weekend, so I'll be there. I've still got to do some printmaking for that later on today. Um, Getting things organized and inventoried, all that good stuff that needs to be done. So we'll see how that all goes. But I wanted to get some work on this done right now in the morning while I'm still fresh. And then I might come back and work on it a little bit more in the evening. I'm recording this a little bit early. By the time this airs on Friday, Conjuration will be going on. It is in Atlanta, near the Hartsfield Jackson Port. And you should come if you are into Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings, or basically anything that's got like a magic system. I'm going to be on a panel talking about The Prisoner of Azkaban since it turns 20 this year, the book. I believe the movie turned 15, but for me personally, Prisoner of Azkaban I think is the best of the Harry Potter movies. It feels the most artsy, and it has the most interesting, coherent story. I think it's one of J.K. Rowling's like true mysteries. She kind of seems like she got away from that a little bit as the series went on. There was no way you could solve the Deathly Hollows, for example, because we didn't know those existed. So that's not really. I read a lot of mysteries. I grew up with a lot of mysteries. My grandmother used to collect Agatha Christie books and things like that. And I grew up reading and listening to her read mystery novels. And for me personally, a good mystery novel is one that you can potentially solve, where you're getting information about the case and you can potentially figure it out. The problem I had with, and I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so this is very painful to me, but it's been years since the books have been over, and I've had a lot of time to think about it. And the problem to me is that the books, once she got towards the end of the series, there was no way you could have solved any of those mysteries. It turned from being a mystery, a kind of wizarding mystery series, into more of a adventure, coming of age, generational novel series. And that's fine, but I'm not really a fan of generational novels. And so it was a bit disappointing for me because I was here for the mysteries and the world building, and we ended up getting something a bit different. And I don't know, I just got some issues with it. That doesn't mean I don't love it. You can have issues with things and still love them. So I am very much still a fan of the Harry Potter books and franchise and world, but I have some opinions. So you see it's kind of coming together nicely. We're starting to get it nice and filled out. These are smaller scales, and then I'll go back up to larger scales. These small ones are very tedious to do, but they look very nice and impressive once they're all completed. So last year, I did nothing but dinosaurs for November. That was my November celebration. I think I called it Dinovember or something like that. And it was a lot of fun. But this year, I have a lot of commissions I'm working on, and I just haven't had as much time to do it. This one I'm doing for a very special collector um, who commissioned me way in advance. So I'm definitely doing this one. But some of the other ones, I just don't have time this year. I'm also trying to broaden out my digital art knowledge, and so I'm working on Huevember, which I always hear that and I think Hugh, 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 but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Is that just me? Probably. Um, but that's what I'm working on right now. Not that you could tell because I'm very behind. I've been struggling with a lot of the challenges this year for some reason, but it's not like I haven't been busy. I've just been so busy doing artwork for other things that the artwork for challenges has kind of gotten thrown to the wayside. And I know the purpose of a lot of those challenges is to get you to do art in the first place, and I am definitely doing that. But I always feel bad when I sign up for a challenge and then I end up behind because I feel like I'm failing myself, if that makes sense. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to stuff like that, so I hold myself to stupidly high standards and then get disappointed when I don't meet those stupidly high standards. But anyway, I've got to work on the eye because I feel like it needs a lot more shading. It looks pretty unrealistic compared to the rest of the piece to me. And I think that's because for my carnivores, most of them have the eye that's like a slit down the center, like I do with my dino um, eye pendants. But this is the first herbivore that I've done, aside from the Ankylosaurus. And when I did the Ankylosaurus, I did an eye like this, and it still looked kind of yeah to me. So I'm gonna have to find a way to punch this eye up a little bit and make it look a little bit more interesting because right now it just looks like a pretty standard eye, and that's all right. But this is a dinosaur, and I want it to look a little different. You know what I mean? So, but in my tests, I also didn't. It didn't like look right if I made it a slit like the Velociraptor eyes. So I don't know. Hair down out of my towel. So we got the cheek done for the most part. Now it's just adding in. Okay. So I saw Dr. Sleep this weekend. I was very unimpressed. And the reason I'm very unimpressed isn't because, like, the director was bad or the actors were bad. No, everyone was doing really well. Like, I can tell everyone in this movie was really, like, trying. Everyone put their heart and soul into it, and I feel bad being a negative Nancy. However, I don't feel so bad that I'm not going to talk about it. Now, I haven't read Doctor Sleep. I'm going to put that out there. I haven't read it because I'm sick of sequels. I haven't read I've read The Shining. The Shining is like one of my favorite books by Stephen King. Stanley Kubrick's Shining is amazing. I really enjoy it. Stephen King's book of The Shining is really good. It's one of my favorites. But it's not Pet Sematary good. It's not Cujo good. It's not It good. It's not as good as some of his other works. And I think the reason it's not is because the book is almost autobiographical in a lot of ways. And I think Uncle Steve has a hard time talking about his addiction that he went through in his life when he was completely addicted to alcohol and was doing cocaine and was struggling in a lot of ways with his own depression and his own issues. I am not minimizing his depression. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not trying to minimize his issues that he had. These are very real problems, and of course, they're going to come out in his artwork. That makes perfect sense. Hell, I'm sitting here as someone who suffers from depression, and I use my artwork as a way to cope with it. That's how I do things. However, Uncle Steve's issue isn't that he's using his artwork as a way to cope with it in The Shining. The issue is that he wants us so badly to sympathize with Jack Torrance's abuse and what he's doing and why he's doing it that we end up kind of everyone else ends up kind of like suffering. So, for example, one of my biggest problems with The Shining in the book is Wendy's character. She's supposed to be a strong, independent lady figure. And at times in this book, she really is. But other times, for the most part in the book, she's very passive. I don't like when Uncle Steve writes sex scenes. I'm pretty openly ace, and I usually don't feel comfortable with sex scenes, but I have to read them because everyone else loves them. So I read over it and I go through things. It's not that big of a deal. But the sex scenes in The Shining, where Jack and Wendy are like flirting, or where Wendy is starting to suspect that Jack is becoming more violent and drinking again, but she doesn't know how, and she's starting to question her own sanity and logic in the process. Because how could he get booze here at the hotel when logically he could have just bought some and hidden it? I mean, come on, Wendy, are you dumb? But anyway, um, she can't figure out why it seems like he's drinking again with his behavior, but she can't find any booze, so she's wondering if she's judging him harshly and all this stuff. And their sex scene is uncomfortable. It's the kind of uncomfortable where you're reading about a person having sex with someone and they don't really want to, but they feel like they have to, but they're being sort of pressured into it. And the other person is reveling in the fact that they're uncomfortable. It has this rapey feel to it. And I know a lot of people feel like rapey scenes in books are important for like character development and stuff like that. I'm not one of those people who thinks that. I don't enjoy those kind of scenes, and when I read that part, I didn't have any sympathy for Jack anymore. But Uncle Steve really wants us to sympathize with him, and I just didn't. I have a hard time sympathizing with a person who's such a slave to his addiction that he's going to treat people that he loves poorly. And this is because I've known people who have addictive personalities in real life, and it is awful trying to deal with them, trying to deal with helping them recover and all that. And it's one thing if they're just, it's not a huge issue, but I've had people in my life that I have known that have such addictive personalities, whether they're addicted to drugs or alcohol or video games. I've known so many people addicted to video games for some reason. That it's just frustrating, and I don't have a lot of sympathy for that because the problem is Uncle Steve has sympathy for it, and I don't. I totally think we should help people who have addictions in real life, but I don't want to read about a character who's dealing with that stuff in a horror novel because I just don't find them that compelling. They have an addiction and it makes them do things. That's the essence of it. So the problem with Dr. Sleep is that, and spoilers for The Shining and Dr. Sleep, obviously, but the problem with um, Dr. Sleep is that at the end of The Shining, in the movie, the Kubrick movie, not the thing that Stephen King put together to try to prove he could make a better story and failed. Um, Sorry, Uncle Steve, I love you, but damn. Um, Basically, with that version, in the movie version, Dick Halloran dies. Danny and Wendy survive, but Dick Halloran gets killed. Like he gets axed in the hallway by Jack. It's a pretty famous scene. In the book, Dick Halloran does not die. He and Wendy move to Florida, take Danny with them, and Dick Halloran helps them recover. And so the movie is stuck with this weird situation of how do we deal with that? What happened to Dick? I don't know what happened to Dick. Well, but seriously, what happens to him? Because on the one hand, he's dead in the movie. In the book, he's not. But if he survives, then there's a person to help teach Danny how to use his gifts better. If he doesn't survive, then Danny just is going to be a sad panda, I guess, because he doesn't have anyone to help him. like his mom, but his mom doesn't understand the shining. Um, she's just reacting to it. And so it just becomes kind of a weird situation because the way the movie solves this problem is they have Dick there. He's a ghost. And for some reason, Dick is busy a lot, even though he's dead. And he can't stick around and help Danny when Danny needs it. He just pops in occasionally and offers wise black man advice, because that's literally what this is at this point. And I hate that trope so much. I mean, why should Dick Halloran have to come around as a ghost to help his kid understand the shine? He'd help this kid understand the shine. This isn't even his kid. This is just some random kid who just happened to walk into the hotel he was working at on the last day before he left for the winter. And now he's roped into this in the afterlife. They even have Dick Halloran say that at one point in the movie. He's like, "Hell, you just walked into my restaurant." And it's like, "Yeah, I know. Why are you being obligated to come and help this kid out in your afterlife?" This random white kid who's constantly in trouble. And it's not even like, and the thing is, I could understand him helping a little bit when Danny's a kid and all this stuff had just happened. But in the movie, for the most part, Danny's grown up. Danny has become an alcoholic like his dad, which, I'm sorry, your father tried to murder everyone. It's not like he struggled with his addiction and then like recovered and then stopped and then recovered, all this stuff. Like there was not like a struggle, and Danny was 5 when all this happened. And so like he doesn't remember that much, but he knows his father murdered people because I mean that was a pretty traumatic situation. I mean, the whole movie was a traumatic situation. I mean, that's how they advertise for The Shining. Warning: traumatic situation incoming. Um, but Danny's just so frustrating in this movie because he literally is just, he's so helpless. He's so useless. And they try to make him seem kind of badass at places, but it doesn't work. So this guy has spent his whole life, talks about how his dad died like 30 years ago, so this dude's pushing 40. His mother died of cancer, which is awful, but it's also a way for them to get Wendy out of the picture so they don't have to worry about casting an aged Shelley Duvall lookalike. But when they cast lookalikes for Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall and Scatman Crothers, funny thing, the only one of those that's actually dead in real life is Scatman Crothers. Everybody else is still here. So it just tells me a lot that Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson didn't come back for this, because honestly, I wouldn't either. But anyway, so so Danny's helpless. He grows up and he's an alcoholic. He's a bum. He travels from town to town and just sleeps on the dirt because, being able to see the future and stuff, and being able to see ghosts, like, really sucks. And so he copes with it by being a homeless, I guess. I mean, I don't see how that's going to make it better because you're going to see even worse stuff when you're homeless. I mean, you want to talk about suffering, Danny? I mean, I guess. But anyway, there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where he goes into, like, we're introduced to him as an adult when he has hooked up with some lady he met at a bar, and he wakes up, vomits, beautiful, and then and then steals money from her, and then sees she has a little kid, puts the kid where she's passed out in bed with a puddle of vomit near her. So he puts this kid like a foot away from a puddle of vomit, and then leaves. And I sat here and I thought to myself, like, am I supposed to sympathize with this guy? Because I don't. And then like, and I know he's supposed to be like, oh, he's gonna get better, but he doesn't really. I mean, he has a friendly Dick Halloran, friendly ghost of a black man who comes in to help his lame white ass, because he's absolutely helpless. He can't figure out what to do with ghosts. He sucks at like dealing with and so like Dick Halloran has to come in and give him advice occasionally. And Danny just grows up to be such a loser. And that's so disappointing. because in the because basically like all these people, like you've got a woman who sacrificed her safety and well-being for him and dies. We've got a black man who sacrifices his safety and well-being for him and dies. And we even have Jack Torrance, his dad, who is a working class man who, in the end of the book, sacrifices his safety and well being and dies to save Danny. In the movie, he took the job so that he could make sure his family was okay. So, either way, you have a whole bunch of characters that have sacrificed themselves so Danny can become what? I swear, I'm so irritating. Now, there's a really cool character in this movie. Her name is Abra, I think. It sounded like her name was Abra. I'm terrible with names. But she was really cool. She's a young girl who has also The Shining, and she is 100 times more badass than Danny is. And when she sees bad stuff happening, she doesn't just want to turn away from it like a loser. She wants to actually solve the problem. And I loved her. She was amazing. She was creative and amazing. She did great things with her abilities. I was like, Dick, why aren't you going to go visit her? Because she's the one who's like really got something going on here. I don't know what Danny's problem was, but he's just sitting around on his butt. He's like, oh, some kid got murdered? Well, I know you're upset, but go home. You can't solve this problem. I was just like, wow, Danny. Okay. Cool. This is your way of running away from people. You know what? Dr. Sleep, the name of the movie, it felt like it came from the fact that Danny was so boring. I know it came from the fact that he like worked at a hospice and like helped like soothe elderly people as they died. But man, the parts of the movie where Abra wasn't there and Rose, like the bad guy, the antagonist lady, like scenes where those two weren't were kind of boring. Doctor Sleep was kind of boring in a lot of places. And I think the most insulting part of the movie, but the part that they're using to sell the movie, is where they go to the Overlook Hotel. Now, I admit, I was super turned for this because one of the things I love about Stephen King's books is his world building. That was the thing I loved about it. I loved the world building of Derry. Loved it. All the background stuff, all the stuff with the mobsters getting killed, all the stuff with the origin of Pennywise, all of these things I love about Stephen King's books. And I think it's just such a fertile place for creativity. If he came out with books that just talked about these fictional locations, I would literally just sit and buy them. But anyway, the Overlook Hotel in the book has a very rich history. So in the book, Jack is digging around trying to clean some stuff up, and he finds this old scrapbook. And the scrapbook has a whole bunch of information about the Overlook Hotel and its origins and all this stuff. And it was built by gangsters after it was taken, after the land was stolen from native people. It was built basically on top of an Indian burial ground. Ha ha, Uncle Steve. Um, that's a bit of a tired trope, but we let you get away with it multiple times. Anyway, um, so the background of the Overlook is there's been tons of murders there because it used to be run by the mafia. It was a mafia built place, and the location is cursed because of the fact it was built on a burial ground that was stolen from people, and lots of native people died trying to prevent it from being taken. And so the whole Overlook is basically this giant machine that takes people's souls and absorbs them. It absorbs their energies. And the ghosts that are there are all people who have been driven to the brink by the hotel. The hotel itself is bad. All of the ghosts that you see there, those are all victims of the hotel. They're not necessarily like evil themselves. They might have been bad people in their lifetime, but the hotel plays on that and turns them against each other. Most of the time, a lot of the people who are there because of suicide or murder. People who killed themselves or people who were killed. And so all the victims of the Overlook are just that. They're all victims. Even though they're scary and even though they try to attack Danny, they do that because they're deluded by the hotel into behaving in a certain way. Now, this is all in the book. This is not like I'm making this stuff up or something. This is all like part of the inference you get from reading the book. Now, it doesn't come straight out and say all of these things, but books don't always do that. A lot of times you're supposed to read between the lines. That's how that goes. So you know, when they go to the Overlook Hotel, it's kind of weird because Danny up to this point has been haunted by ghosts from the Overlook. They've apparently been appearing to him. They love showing the lady in the bathtub, I guess because she's old and has saggy boobs and that scares people. Hello, male gaze. But anyway, that's a thing. They love showing her, creeping in the bathtub. She doesn't do anything except creep in the bathtub. I don't think she ever even gets out of the bathtub. She might have one point, but I don't recall ever seeing her out of the tub. But anyway, so so we have Danny has been seeing these ghosts, and Dick gives him the idea to put the ghosts into a mental box and kind of trap them in there. And this seems like a pretty good idea until you see Danny's got like a ton of boxes just chilling out in his brain by the time he gets to be older. But it doesn't bother him any. He just has them there. They're just chilling. There's no indication that it takes some kind of a mental toll on him, and this is why it's like stressing him out, and maybe why he's got an alcohol problem. Nope. He just puts him in a box, and then he's good. So Danny's been doing this for a bit. He's got all these people's souls trapped in his own head. And when they go to the Overlook Hotel, he wanders around and they get a bunch of good shots for the trailer. I'm sorry, do I sound bitter? I am bitter. But they get a bunch of good trailer shots. He goes and talks to his dad, who thinks he's Lloyd the bartender now, which makes no sense because Grady, Delbert Grady, who had died before Jack, thought that he was a party goer and that Jack was the caretaker, even though Delbert Grady had been the caretaker before Jack. Jack has no reason to think that he is the bartender. They haven't had another caretaker, so he would probably think he's the caretaker. Still, until there's a new caretaker that comes and takes over. But Jack just sits there behind the bar and is very not Jack Nicholson. And but trying so hard. And they pull some lines from the original Shining book um, that I appreciated. There were a couple of moments like that, but mostly it's just stuff that is for the trailers. Not all that great. Um, and then they wake up the hotel. Waking up the hotel means Danny just walks around, goes to talk to his dad for a few minutes, and then like the hotel is awake, I guess. I thought he was going to walk in and release all the ghosts, but no, he waits until like he's about to battle the antagonist, and then in the dumbest way possible, and then releases all the ghosts from his brain, and all the ghosts come out of his brain, and they go and they kill the bad lady. They eat her in a way that is also pretty dumb that I don't want to like get into. And then Jack goes on and is like, "Oh, hey, what's up, kid? We never see him again. We never see him, even though we know his ghost is chilling out somewhere in the hotel. We never see him. Never shows up." Um, for some reason, all the ghosts like next try to kill Danny, even though they know that he could like ruin their whole day in just an instant. They all try to go after him, and then for some reason he gets possessed and takes his axe. Of course, there's an axe, right? And like goes and tries to chase down Abra, who at this point is like any sensible kid, like, what the hell is happening? Um, because Danny gave her absolutely no warning about what happens in this place. He just said that it's a bad place, which I guess, I mean, true, but there's a little more to it than that. That Danny is like the worst strategist. You can tell he's not had to do anything. He gets his like ass kicked constantly in this movie because he is just so bad at everything. Somehow he's able to shoot a rifle. I don't know when he learned that technique because I mean, I guess like maybe he learned it. Maybe his mom was like, you know what, that was weird. Let's make sure you know how to shoot a gun, Danny. I have absolutely no idea when he learned how to do that, but apparently he's good enough that he could hit people from a good distance and kill off some bad guys. Um, but he doesn't have that ability there now because he's too busy being, sad and depressed. And basically, Danny goes and he uses this whole thing as a way to commit suicide, and it's in the most anticlimactic way possible. And it also ditches this poor kid who like could have used his assistance. And I don't know. I'm really tired of watching characters that I enjoy be wasted. And this is where I come back to J.K. Rowling because she was really bad about that. Lupin's character got completely wasted. Sirius Black's character was wasted. A lot of characters were wasted. And the problem with it is that you can really tell that your protagonist is biased because they're not interested in any of these other side characters. They're only interested in themselves. Anyway, I'm sorry. Dr. Sleep was a huge disappointment for me. It was trying so hard to look and feel and be The Shining. And I know it wants to be like one of those movies that, like, oh, you watch this, you need to watch the sequel. And I can already tell that it's going to be released in like box sets. So you'll buy Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and then you're going to get Mike Flanagan's um, Doctor Sleep as well, because it's a sequel. I didn't get the impression that Stanley Kubrick appreciated sequels. And what bothers me the most about this is that Stephen King never liked Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining. And I feel like this whole thing, the book, the movie, all of it, is just an elaborate way to say a big fuck you to Stanley Kubrick after his death. And I find that really, really distasteful. Because Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, you can critique his motives as a director, you can critique his methodology, and he did some pretty messed up things too. His actors, if you ever read up in that, it's pretty messed up. But you can question all of those things. But Stephen King's problem isn't with that. His problem is with the way that the movie ends. He didn't like how it seemed like Jack Torrance was crazy from the beginning, and how it seemed like he just was gonna try to murder his whole family from the beginning of the movie. So what he does in Doctor Sleep is he creates a movie that hits almost exactly every beat in The Shining, except without a family going. It's just Danny. At the end of Doctor Sleep, Danny even goes to the boiler room and he dies in the same way that Jack died in the book. So it's really like Stephen King is just like, I'm going to get this death in here one way or another, and you're going to feel sympathy for this character. And I just didn't feel any sympathy for him. And I felt like I was watching something that I'd already like read and processed before in the past, but done better. Like the older one was done better. And I was just like, Uncle Steve, what are you doing? This is really petty. Like the whole thing felt like it was really petty revenge for no reason against somebody who admired your work. Like, why would you do that? And Stanley Kubrick's not alive to defend his version. And it's really, it felt distasteful. It felt like I was watching something that was like a battle between creatives, but it wasn't really a battle because only one of the people was alive. And so it was kind of like just like watching someone just kick a dead horse. Like it was. Stephen King has been mad about this since 1980, and he has not let it go. And I think that this book and this movie just shows it. He has so much creative control now that he can exert, and all he has to do is write a sequel And people are very much about, like, especially because the It movie did well and Pet Cemetery did well. And so now it's like, okay, Stephen King, whatever you want. And that is, I'm a creative person too, so I understand being protective of your work, but at the same time, it just feels messy. Like if I asked someone to adapt, if I did a draw this in your style challenge, and I was like, draw this in your style, and someone drew it in a style that I didn't like, it's too late. I let them do it. And especially if a lot of other people liked it. Like, The Shining is a classic film, Kubrick's version, not the one that Stephen King made in the 90s or 2000s or something. I have it. It's awful because a lot of the stuff that he describes in the book doesn't translate well to live action. But I can tell that he's going to try to do another remake of The Shining soon. I'm going to call it right now and say that he's going to try to get that off the ground. And it sucks because he should be letting this go. And instead, he's gone to the trouble of writing a whole book just so he can have a movie made about it, just so he can just kick Kubrick while he's dead. And I say that not because, like, I'm not trying to be mean about it, but there were so many moments in that movie that were just like directly lifting from Kubrick's movie. Just directly lifting from him. And that would be different. I don't know, it didn't feel like an homage. It felt like this is a world builder. It was using the same camera techniques. And there were some places where it was using them without like reason or rationale that felt super pretentious. And I get that Kubrick could seem pretentious to someone who like hasn't studied him as extensively, but a filmmaker has studied him. Like no filmmaker has gone without studying Kubrick. No modern filmmaker. Like I know like some of the old school filmmakers probably haven't studied him, but they've watched him. They've studied him on their own. So I know that they know better. I know that they're aware of what they're seeing and what they're doing. And I just whole things. Like even the opening of the movie shows the carpet from the Overlook Hotel. Like it's a Think Geek advertisement. And the thing about it is, this isn't about the Overlook Hotel. This is supposed to be about Danny Torrance. If it's about the Overlook Hotel, give me a movie about the Overlook Hotel. But they don't want to do that. Instead, they want to take Danny's character and be like, yep, he never accomplished anything in his life, and he kind of sucks. Sorry. That character you liked? Yeah, he's a loser now. The real kid that played Danny Torrance grew up to be like a professor. Like, he works at a university. He's done, like, awesome stuff. So I don't know where this is coming from. It's just Stephen King, like, projecting, well, you know what? This kid went through trauma. He must have become an alcoholic. And I'm like, you know what? Not everybody's going to cope with trauma like that. Especially when he saw what happened to his dad and he grew up hearing stories about it. Why would that? And I know some people end up falling into the same pitfalls as their parents, but not everyone does that. In fact, a lot of people try very hard not to. It would be different if he had a different type of addiction. Like if he was addicted to something else. His father was addicted to alcohol and he's addicted to something different. But no, no, he's not. It's the same damn thing. And I'm just like, Uncle Steve, I know you experienced addiction, like, directly, but it just feels so unrealistic. And there are good moments in the movie. There are moments where he's like talking about his mom and his dad or whatever, and I feel like, oof. And the stuff with Abra is fantastic. That girl is a fantastic actress. She did a great job with this movie. I would watch a movie about her. Literally just about Abra on her magical adventures, doing doing stuff, um, stopping these weird vampire like people that try to kill folks who have the shining. Like I would watch that. I would watch the hell out of that. Like that's pretty amazing. But and Doctor Sleep is doing pretty good from what I can tell. Like I have a lot of friends in the horror community and people are real excited about it. And I have to write a review on it and I'm not sure how to approach it because I'm like I can see that people love it and I just don't. And I feel like there's something wrong with me. Like maybe I'm being too critical. Maybe I'm coming at this too critically. But I felt like that when I first watched The Last Jedi. I felt really bad because I didn't enjoy it and I thought everyone else did. And then I slowly saw people start to post like how they didn't like it. And then I was like, okay, good. I saw that with the Star Wars prequels. People at first talked about how great it was, and then slowly started to come to the realization that, these kind of suck. Um, I've seen it a lot. I don't know. I feel bad. And I know I shouldn't feel bad. I know I should be honest about my reviewing process. And I should just like come straight forward and say, yep, this sucked. But, and I guess this is what happens when you do review films because it's like, you're not always going to like everything that everyone else likes. There are good parts in that movie too. I think that's what that makes it worse because like it's not like the whole movie sucks. Like there's really good parts in it. Okay, so here's the thing. I have an issue where when I hear a persistent heartbeat, it can sometimes make me feel faint or nauseous. I have passed out in a movie theater before. Um, I've passed out a number of times at places like Disney World or something like that from that kind of a sound or that kind of, um, I don't know, just feeling. And it's embarrassing because I'm one of those people that like doesn't like to seem like weak or something in front of folks, and it's also like scary to like lose consciousness like that. Um, but here's the thing: Doctor Sleep uses the heartbeat sound almost throughout the whole movie. Like they played it for going on probably at least a good 30 minutes straight at one point. Because they play it anytime someone uses The Shining. And I'm just like, why are you doing this to me? And I guess it's supposed to make me uncomfortable. It sure does, but I mean, not in the way I think they expected. And I can't tell if that's why I don't like it. Because literally I had to sit there and be like, oh God, don't pass out. Don't faint. And you think you can't faint in a chair, but you sure can. But I didn't faint. I stayed conscious. But I don't have any problem watching The Shining, the actual Shining. Just this movie. And it was not a good experience for me. I did not enjoy that at all. And maybe that's why I didn't like it. But I'm pretty sure it was also incredibly boring. Like there were moments in that movie where I was just like, I could leave and pee and come back and I wouldn't have missed anything. Like the characters were just not most of the characters. So Rose's little group, I can't remember the one guy was named Crow. He and her were both really great. Um, there was this girl that was like a rattlesnake or something. That was like her nickname, and I didn't give a crap about her. And they wanted me to care, and I was like, "You must be a POV character in the book," but I did not care. Um, and but Rose and Crow and Abra, they were okay. And the guy that played Dick Halloran, he was great. That man knew what was up. He was channeling Scatman Crothers so well, like it made me tear up a little bit. Like he was doing amazing. The lady that played Wendy, Danny's mom, she had her Shelley Duvall impression down pat. She did great. The kid that played young Danny Torrance when he's still a little kid, that was awesome. But even Danny, I think Ewan McGregor played him. He did great. Like it's not the acting. The acting was amazing. I'm not talking about the acting at all. The actors did so well with what they had to work with. And if this movie gets awards or something, it's going to be from recreating those sets. They recreated a lot of sets. They even found a way to randomly work in the bathtub lady and her set and have her like be naked crawling out of the tub again. But I'll tell you what, that's the only thing that's going to get an award for this movie. The problem with it is that it's just not original because I've seen The Shining. And it's, I mean, you're using the exact same sets, you're using the exact same music, you're using a lot of the same camera angles. Like, where's the new movie? I don't know. I was just so disappointed with it because, and I could kind of tell from the trailers it might stink, but I wanted to give it a chance. Like it's a Stephen King movie. I love Stephen King. I love The Shining. I love, all right, let's go. But, and I wanted to believe that Uncle Steve wrote this book for reasons other than just saying a big F you to dead Stanley Kubrick. But I can't say that because I saw absolutely no reason to think that's what happened. And y'all know how frustrating that is? Like, that's super frustrating. I guess if you haven't seen The Shining in a long time, um, and you want something to make you go, oh, I know that. Oh, I remember that. Oh, yeah, that's a thing that happened. I guess this movie would be okay because you're not really invested in it much. But if you have rewatched The Shining recently, you're probably going to be a little disappointed. And it shouldn't be that way, but here we are. Look at all this. Got all that done. I feel really good. Okay, I'm going to try to finish up this little here, and then I'm going to rest my hand because it is very tired. All that movie made me want to do was watch The Shining again. Not read the book. Watch the Stanley Kubrick movie again. All right. So I'm going to lower you guys down a little bit so you can see. Look how nice that looks. I feel really good about that. The detail work looks pretty nice. Um, this will lighten up as it darkens, as it dries. And then I'm going to go in and add more of this shading, but I don't want to do it while the ink is potentially still wet because it'll smear. But I hope you enjoyed this. Leave me a comment, let me know, and if you want me to talk more movies while I'm working, let me know if you do, because I'm interested. All right, peace out, take care, and I will see you later.